Good evening, good evening, good evening, good evening, good evening, and good evening. Ladies and gentlemen, WeatherBrains episode number 560. The pre-show. It is that time of the show where we share boring personal stories, humorous anecdotes, and occasionally say outrageous things. And I'm watching the Red Sox down to their last chances here to carry on. This is extremely illegal for me to be showing this. We'll probably be kicked off YouTube. So
Are they going to win?
Ortiz is batting. The Red Sox are down 4-2. And it's the bottom of the eighth, so they'll have one more bat after this.
Series, Jen.
Cleveland is leading 2-0. This is the elimination game.
So this is it.
This is it. So, no, it's been a great season. And, if it ends, they've had a great year and had a lot of fun up there. But I was hoping if they went on to the World Series, we're going to try and finagle a couple of tickets and go.
They've done it before.
Yeah, I just want to get in the house. Cheapest seats, which will probably be not cheap for the World Series, but I've never been to a World Series game in person. I'm an old man. At some point, you just need to be doing things.
Your bucket list, James.
Yeah, bucket list. See a World Series game in person? Jump out of an airplane? No, I'm not going to jump out of an airplane. They walked Ortiz. They wouldn't. They didn't throw him anything to hit. Probably
I'll
a
do a
smart
tandem
move.
jump with you.
Do what now?
I'll do a tandem parachute jump with you.
I got no use for that. I just
I'm ready.
Some people would love to do that. It's just not working for me. It's not working for me. So, so do we need to? We got a guest here. What's the status?
Well, Mark Sudduth is having trouble with he's getting back to his house, and as soon as he does, he's going to jump on his laptop, and then he's going to send me his second Gmail address because we've been working with his iPad and iPhone, and it comes up with a registration error. So we're gonna try it from the laptop. Otherwise, we are guestless.
Bill, is your mic working? What do you got
No,
there? You sound like you're in a tin can.
Sensor mic. I hate that. I really hate that. Let's see if I can do anything about it. Y'all talk amongst yourselves, and I'll be back.
So, Brian.
Yes, sir.
I had to clean up the closet here.
Oh.
Let's see here. Hang on. I'm all tangled up. I can't show you much, but the bottom line is,
wow, looks clean.
That this is a shock as to how clean it is back there. There's nothing on the floor anymore. There were like 5 layers back there.
Elizabeth, I'm coming to you. It's the big one.
Yeah, 5 layers. I found stuff back there that you would not believe.
Was it growing stuff that you?
Yeah, growing things.
Sell for medicinal purposes.
Electronic equipment, cables, things. Some very useful things I found back here. Found some IFBs. All kind of good stuff. All right, so we got a hit. So Boston's going to score 1 run here. So now it's 4-3 in the bottom of the 8th. Wow. It ain't over till it's over. That's what I tell my kids.
Right.
This game's not over until we say it's over.
Bingo.
Yeah,
hey,
they're going. It's cold up there. It looks like it's about 47, 48. That's a cold night for a baseball game.
It is. Hey, wasn't it surprising to get a supper invitation from?
Yeah, an old boss,
a man who shall go unnamed.
We can say, come on, we're just talking between us friends here.
I didn't look up the 540 area code before I asked the question of who was inviting me. You notice I said yes before I asked who was inviting me. I'll follow anywhere for a free lunch.
Yeah, no, it's we've got Gary Kelly, our old news director, is back in town. This is the 20th anniversary of our little television station here. So there's a big celebration Thursday. And I don't even know if I'm invited. I I don't even know when it is. In fact, what's odd, I've got to MC a function Thursday night, but a lot of people are coming back that have worked here. And
5:30 to 8:30.
Okay, well, I'll stick my head out there at 5. I can go out there for 30 minutes in between the newscasts, but it's hard to believe that I've worked anywhere in this business for 20 years. I mean, that just doesn't happen. That is a shock. Our youngest child, I have worked here the duration of his life, which is just crazy. That doesn't happen in this business. So anyway, we're getting a bunch of old people back. Say old people. People might be young, but they're coming back. And but we got this nasty note to clean up our space. So Brian and I work in a room in a closet here that basically looks like a landfill. And I spent about an hour just trying to get the first 3 layers off the floor. And goodness, I'll say this: I probably have 18 T-shirts I found over here.
Wow.
Which I can use because I, work out across the street now. Yeah, we'll see what all-star cast comes back at the 20-year party. Kevin, you want to come join our 20th anniversary celebration?
That sounds like fun.
You should. There should be some pretty good food out there.
I guess I almost came to work there, didn't I?
You did. You know Gary. Gary's coming back.
What year would that have been? So this is the 20 years of the station?
Yeah, the affiliation swap year here in this market was in 1996.
96.
Right. So that's when
did I come? What year would it have been when I came back there? Because it was mornings, right?
Yeah, it was mornings. We wanted Kevin to work mornings here. It was a few years into it. I forget. I lose track of time. I'm really good with tornado dates, but I lose track of time with that.
And I said not just no, but hell no.
Yeah, and we flew Ginger Z down here to the same thing, and she said she had the same answer as Kevin had. So there you go.
So then that must have been when Jason came on.
Yes, I think Jason Simpson was hired about that time
because Mark had left.
Right, Mark Prater, who had been doing mornings, left to go to I think Iowa. He went out of town and wound up being Jason Simpson, and after Jason, we wound up with Charles Daniel, who's on the air now. So, and here we are, still doing the television thing, owned by Sinclair Broadcasting. What one ownership change in 20 years? That's also fairly amazing.
These days, yes.
And James, do you realize I have 30% of my National Weather Service, or 33% of my National Weather Service career now at 3340?
Wow. You know what that means?
Yeah, I'm old.
We're getting old.
Yeah. How old are you, Brian?
Old enough to know better.
Come on.
I don't want the world to hear that.
Well, it's just us girls talking.
Oh, yeah, right. And 50,000 people on YouTube. And
put it in the chat.
Come on, Brian, I am comfortable with my age.
All right, I'm 68.
You typed it backwards.
I know.
He put 86 in the chat room.
I was trying to fool you.
I was going to go,
No,
wait a
it's not.
I will be 68 years old come Saturday morning.
68. Oh,
birthday boy.
Yes, birthday boy.
That's also what they say in the restaurant when you run out of something. They 86 it. So
So I just turned 60. It's the greatest excuse. I love it. I mean, anytime I forget something, I'm 60. I'm down here at the workout place, and I'm slower than everybody else. I'm 60.
Please, I'm using that excuse now.
Playing tennis, you make a bad shot. Hey, I'm 60. Miss a weather forecast. I'm 60. So it's a great excuse for everything.
I think so too.
No,
but I'm not letting age keep me from jumping out of an airplane.
I feel
my problem is I'm a little too heavy for the parachute.
Whoop. Oh, sorry, Brian.
Brian, you need to come work out with me.
I know I do, but from what you've been saying, it'll kill me.
It will. I mean, the first day you will never want to come back. And then that's the true determination of how courageous you are to see if you come back on the second day. They say that's the hardest part is coming back the second time. And once you do that, you're good.
Hi, everybody.
I've been training for a 5K for 6 weeks now. And today was the first day I said to myself with no doubt that I would be able to run the whole 5K.
There you go. That's awesome.
Kevin.
That's incredible.
It's only 3 miles. It's not that big a deal.
When you're 60, that's a long way.
When you're 53, it's a long way.
But no, that's awesome. Bob had played tennis for a long time, but that's little bursts. This duration stuff is what I'm having to learn, and it's hard. Hey, Mark, are you in the dark? Got any lights by any chance?
I'm trying.
Well, man, it looks like you're at the local strip joint there.
Was that more an ethereal question? What's the word I want? Never mind. Not in the dark physically, but never mind.
Kevin, you okay?
Yeah, I'm 53. I forget that.
Yeah, there you go. You start losing track of what you're trying to say. I can't think of words, and
I remember Brian used to proctored a couple of my Mississippi State tests. But you remember that back at the old office, not the old office, but the medium old office.
Yeah. The office now that due to security you probably can't get into.
Right.
How's that?
So,
better
I
lighting?
went there a couple times.
A little bit.
yeah, now we can see your face. That's still
No, I'm lit.
a little dark, but you're illuminated better than before. You're good, Mark.
He's been drinking, James. He just said he was lit.
There you go.
Show title.
We've learned that most guests they hit the liquor store before they come on the show here, so it's probably not a bad idea.
Hey, that's it. James asked me what I had for lunch.
What?
A new tradition has started.
No, just ask me what I had for lunch.
Well, Brian, what did you have for lunch today?
Roast beef and cheddar with horseradish sauce, followed by bread pudding with whiskey sauce.
So this is not Arby's then.
No.
I was going to say, Arby's has bread pudding now?
No. It's a little place near the station, and I was invited out to a birthday lunch. And
But was
I
it
couldn't pass
flat?
up was it what?
Flat.
But
Remember
by a
JD
girl?
Bills? Flat dinners.
Flat dinner.
Yeah, it was flat dinner.
No, it was an excellent dinner. I think the bread pudding was about 3 inches tall.
So are we all in agreement to do something with the NWA with our T-shirt money? Is like
And hang on, let me welcome our television audience. Hello, television friends. We're about to start the show in a matter of moments. We have all of our guests here, so I'm sorry, Kevin, go ahead.
You interrupted me for that?
Well, yeah, I saw us hit the. I watch. I'm watching when we hit the television side. I feel obliged to just greet our television viewers
There's no
because it's
countdown or
a new
anything?
new audience set comes in here.
Mm-hmm.
So put my radar back on.
Yeah. What you cut off my radar?
The question was: are we all in agreement that we want to do something with our T-shirt money? Do we want to do like a little at least one-time scholarship thing through the NWA, or do we want to do something else?
I think that's great. I think that's great.
I think we should.
We ought to take that money that the any sponsor money or whatever and just do it that way. I think it's great. Or we could just send it all to Kevin, and he could.
Yeah,
Well, I already have it.
that's a good cause too.
Yeah, I already have it. I could take it and spend it on things now, like memory lessons.
Help boost the local economy, Kevin.
Yes.
Let me get the recorders going here. So stand by. So Kev, you want me to roll this one straight out of the gate, right?
That's your open, yeah.
Yeah, this is awesome. All right, here we go.
It's not too flippant.
No, here we go in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hey, what up? This is Matthew, longest lived Cat 4, Cat 5 Atlantic tropical system in history, yo. And I listen to WeatherBrains.
That's awesome. And that was Matthew. That was Matthew.
That voice was not the little kid that did all those bits not too many years ago.
What it is, these kids have grown up on this show. That's just unbelievable. I mean, he sounds like a man, a macho man now. But anyway, welcome to WeatherBrains episode number 560. This is for October 10th, 2016. We're coming off Hurricane Matthew. That'll be the prime subject of the show tonight. But thanks for taking the time to hang out with us or listen as you drive down the road. We've got quite an assortment of characters on here, including Kevin Selly, the greatest meteorologist in the state of Texas.
Well, I don't know about that.
Well, who else would rank above you?
Certainly in the rest of the country, there are a lot of people in the Southeast who really had a long week and weekend, and my hat's off to all of the local folks who did anything with Matthew, and all the national folks too. I mean, the Weather Channel people and AccuWeather people, they just worked their buns off, and I really respect all of them for doing it. I guess we should, there's probably no question that the name Matthew would be retired now when they do that, when they look at those lists, huh?
Yeah, I think that's a given.
Yeah.
But one of the things we'll talk about tonight is the fact that this was the first big hurricane like that really in the social media age. Twitter didn't exist when Wilma came through. And I would love to hear everybody's take on that, because it added a very interesting dynamic to those days, even if you didn't work in that zone. There are no more boundaries anymore. These DMAs and the CWAs, they just don't exist. And we'll talk about the social media side of that, because that's a fascinating story in itself. Aubrey Urbanowitz is in the lovely Shenandoah Valley, where the fall colors, I betcha, are starting to bloom.
She's muted.
Yes. Hello. Can you hear me?
Hello. You sound good now.
Sorry, I was getting ready for a show. A little behind tonight.
So how are the colors looking?
We're behind. We're behind. I would say close to about 10 days, maybe even close to 2 weeks. We are very much behind, but the colors are shining brightly in West Virginia. They are doing fantastic. In fact, a couple areas just about an hour and a half, 2 hours west of us, kind of on the western fringe of our DMA, is pretty much at peak. And the colors are shining pretty bright across the Canaan Valley, Dolly Sods, some of the high elevations of West Virginia. I think I would give us at least another 2 weeks, maybe even 3.
Okay, cool.
Now, speaking of colors, Aubrey, I have to ask, is for people who are watching, I'm sorry, or who are not watching, is that the dress?
This is the dress.
That's the dress that swept through the female broadcast meteorologist universe like a year ago or so?
Yes, it's so comfortable. It's so comfortable. When I've been drinking all weekend and not eating fantastic all weekend, I just want a very comfortable dress that I think I can hide being on TV. So
show title.
Part of the bit was that it was inexpensive, right? How much was that?
Oh, it's like $24.
And that's reasonable for a dress. That's good.
Oh my goodness. Especially for the fact that this is my most comfortable dress and it cost me less than $30. Mm-hmm. I've bought several similar ones from the same brand, and they're just as comfortable.
I just had to ask. I'm sorry, Jen.
This is WeatherBrains, your ladies' fashion headquarters.
You don't have to pay $150 for a comfortable, flattering dress.
Do we have Kevin? How long have you been married?
Me, 20 years.
And you're asking her, is $24 a good price for a dress?
Yeah. Well, I'm trying to make conversation for our listeners who may not know. Do we have any idea how many female television meteorologists own the dress?
It was over, I believe the last count was over 200.
Oh, wow. That is
so. That should, in other words, probably 90% of us.
Wow.
And I've actually seen a lot of anchors, even just news anchors.
Oh, really?
Wear it. Like I'll catch even some of the national shows, or a couple other area shows and stuff like that. I'll catch them and I'll see them.
Wow.
Kevin, we need to get Aubrey to get there's a super secret female meteorologist Facebook group. They don't want
I don't know what you're talking about.
They don't want anybody even knowing it exists.
Right.
I think we need to get some of the principals and the shakers in that deal to come on this show.
Absolutely.
You know they're bashing us. You know they're bashing the guys on that thing.
Yeah. Aubrey, who are you going to get?
No, because you know what? Our page is not about bashing. We see bashing on the other pages.
Yes.
But in the female page, it is all about support and uplifting and being positive toward your fellow coworkers, male or female.
That doesn't happen in this business. You mean you're using words that build others up instead of tearing them down?
Yes. Aubrey for president.
Absolutely.
Wow, you got my vote.
So this is it, Aubrey. You need to enlist, I don't know, 3 or 4 of the leaders of that group to come on, and we'll do the female broadcast meteorologist Facebook group show.
Yep.
All right, I'll see what I can do. I will put some feelers out. I will send out my investigators and let them report back.
And you'll all have to wear the dress when we do that episode.
Or a version of.
All right,
sorry,
so
I've derailed us.
That's okay. No, we go down the tubes on this show often, and we're going to talk all about Hurricane Matthew. There's much to talk about here. We're going to talk about Matthew. We'll talk about the social media side. We'll talk about the science side. We'll talk about the political side. We'll even go down that rat hole and bring in the right wing and the left wing spin on this whole thing. This has been the most bizarre series of days to watch this thing from a distance. Brian Peters, are you a right wing or a left wing guy?
I don't have any wings at all. I'm just no wings. I'm flying blind on this show, that's for sure.
Yeah, show time.
And just can you give me you have a drum roll there, James?
No,
you don't have a drum roll. Okay.
I've got a
rim shot.
How about this?
Well, I just want everybody to get prepared because when he airs WeatherBrains 101, it's a mini rant. So.
No, this is going to be good. Listen, the recorded segments are really going to be good tonight. We've got your rant, and then Tony Rice is not doing the astronomy report. It's his young man who is 15 years old because Tony has lost his voice. So,
all right.
The recorded segments are going to be kind of like awesome. And and again, down here we're our friends in the Carolinas have had too much rain, and we haven't had any down here. We're struggling with drought conditions, and I would say that is my least favorite kind of weather to deal with.
I agree.
But wildfires and droughts, water shortages, it's nasty.
I don't know if you saw James.
The website droughtchasers.com. That'll work.
Oh yeah,
it just comes to us about every 4 years.
Yeah, I don't know if you saw it, James, but Raleigh, the National Weather Service office in Raleigh has issued a flash flood warning based on a potential dam failure.
Oh,
yeah, I've seen a bunch of those. It's a mess. I mean, we'll talk with Mark about this, but Bill Murray. Rick is here.
Rick, yeah,
he made it. Rick, you okay? So you had some technical difficulties.
The slowest computer reboot in history, but I'm here.
Need a Mac.
So 3 words, Brian. Say it. Get
an Apple
Mac.
Get a Mac. Let me get my wife and say that again.
Yes. Give me your email address. I'll send her a sales pitch. Remember, I used to work at Apple.
Hey, but Bill Murray bringing our guests. We got a lot to talk about. Let's dive in.
Yeah, James. Tonight we're joined at the last second by Mark Sudduth, our friend from HurricaneTrack.com. Mark, of course, you were tracking the hurricane. Welcome to the show.
Great to be back again. We were trying to get this working on an Apple device, weren't we, Bill?
Yeah, you had to go to Avio to get it to work, huh? Yeah,
but it's great to be back. Thanks for the invitation.
Well, tell us what you did during the hurricane, Mark.
Well, I'll tell you what I didn't do. I didn't sleep worth a hoot, and that was bad. But
you'll sleep when you're dead, Mark.
Exactly.
Sleep is deceased.
Been tracking this thing since it was just a envelope, as they call it, a pouch over Nigeria. And we have Invest, and then before the Invest, there's pouches. Isn't that crazy? And it moved off. It developed. We all watched it. It could go here. It could go there. It was looking like a big Gulf problem. All that morphing of the track forecast and watching the models out beyond 5 days, which is a very dangerous profession for people that want to get sleep because there's nothing you can do about it. If you go to sleep, the model still shows what it shows when you get up, but we never learn. But in all seriousness, once it looked like it was going to actually do something as a landfall or close to it along the southeast, I went out. I took the equipment that I have been showcasing around at these different conferences. A lot of you have seen that, and finally got to put it to really good use. Certainly used it during Hermine, but this was another fantastic use of these remote cameras that we set up. And I set up a weather station on top of the bridge going over the causeway there and the intracoastal in New Smyrna Beach, collected really high density, high resolution wind data, pressure data. Everything worked. That's what was so nice about this. Everything that I did worked about 90% of where it should have worked. And when you're in a hurricane, and you know this on TV, that's great. 90% of anything during a hurricane, you're going to take it. And so the interaction, you know, James was talking about the social media era. Oh my goodness. I mean, that interaction pulls on you. And that's another responsibility that I had to deal with, but it's a positive responsibility because 99% of that interaction was favorable and people motivating me through their accolades and their appreciation of the information that I was providing. And so that really motivates me to keep going. And I did. I kept going from New Smyrna Beach, pulled up the equipment that afternoon, followed the storm on the west side of it. I had Interstate 95 all to myself, except for the one guy that went by me at 80 miles an hour, and I saw him spin out and smash into the guardrail, and I just went and gave him a little note. Obviously, I'm joking here, that said, you know, logical consequences, bud, courtesy of a phrase that my father taught me. But beyond that, it was really eerie to see nobody on I-95, but then I crossed some of those wide river basins down in Georgia, the Brunswick River Basin, heading up towards Darien with the Altamaha, and to see it rising almost to the bottom of the bridge bases was just surrealistic. It reminded me of Ike and to some extent Katrina and Bay St. Louis. To see the water in such these wide expanses rising like that, you just knew this was going to be bad. And then, of course, I got back to North Carolina and dealt with it here in the Wilmington area where I live and where I am now. And I've actually set up another camera up in Smithfield where the Neuse River reached a new record height at the Smithfield gauge last night. And finally, I'll be watching Kinston, North Carolina, because that's the next area where flooding could approach what was set back 17 years ago during Hurricane Floyd. So it's been a very, very busy week for me.
Well, I tell you, the state of North Carolina is just in a disaster tonight, isn't it?
It really is. And people, I think, were taken by surprise. I tried in my updates to really emphasize, even while I was on the road, putting these video discussions out, talking about the inland threat of the freshwater flooding. You would think that after Floyd, maybe people would remember, but that's, you know, almost a generation ago now, and people don't remember. And so they were caught by surprise. And we have a lot more people living in these areas now. And, you know, Bill Reed calls the structures along the coast hurricane bait. But I think all these new developments and all the people moving in were all part of this hurricane bait phenomenon, even inland 200 miles. You know, this spread the rainfall into the Raleigh, Durham, Chapel Hill area. Nate Johnson, if he was on tonight, you know, my goodness, people were talking about these trees coming down that were the size of houses, those huge oaks in the triangle, and then flash flooding along Crabtree Creek again. And it's all from a tropical cyclone, Hurricane Matthew. It's just extraordinary. And from the scientific perspective and to be able to cover it, I was glad to be part of it.
So talk about some of the data and some of the highlights of what you achieved, Mark, while you were chasing the hurricane.
Well, the biggest thing is to be able to put these unmanned cameras out. And I have one. Let me step away. 10 seconds, if less. Hey, look,
there's a big hurricane.
There's one right there. So this is what they look like, about the size of my Fred Flintstone head. So it's not very big, the camera in my head, right? And I can put those out
now
anywhere I want.
You look more like Barney, Mark.
Hey, that'll work.
Yeah.
That'll work. And they run for about 30 hours, and they're self-sufficient, and they provide live video with audio. And we have 10 of these, and it's almost impossible for me to set up 10 of them by myself. And it's hard to get, you know, people to just take off work and come work with me. Got people in the background that help out nonetheless. But I put one down in New Smyrna Beach at a condo outside on the balcony. Very interesting. People will contact me and say, hey, I hear you're coming to my area. If you want to use my condo, you know, here's how to get in. And they'll send me their, you know, password to get into their condo. It's just incredible. And I can go out and strap one of these things to their balcony, and we have a live shot from outside with audio, and it'll run for 30 hours. And I can put these anywhere I want to, high, low, immerse you into that weather. I've talked about this at the conferences. You know, that's the main thing, is to be able to immerse people in the weather like they've never seen it and heard it before. So we had New Smyrna Beach at 2 different condominium complexes about 3 miles apart. Then I set the weather station up on the Causeway Bridge that goes over. It's about 40 feet above the water level down there. And so I had a RM Young anemometer, a Davis pressure sensor, and a live picture coming back to our app. And boy, it was just amazing to watch. I don't care how many times I do this, to be able to watch that ramping up in the wind speed as the pressure goes down live in front of your eyes. It was just incredible. And some of the top winds, 93-mile-per-hour gust was sustained close to hurricane force. All of this data is recorded digitally on the laptop. So we have a digital record of it that I can send to the Hurricane Research Division for their wind analysis of the field. There's a lot of other weather stations down there, as you can imagine, with the Kennedy Space Center nearby. So this will hopefully get integrated into that and give us a picture as to exactly what happened. So very successful from the live video and unmanned cameras perspective, allowing me to be in 2 or 3 different places at once by virtue of these unmanned cams, and then the weather data. And then being able to post stuff on Twitter and on YouTube just from the old iPhone here. Absolutely incredible. The work of a crew of people from just one person. And I'm not just trying to pat myself on the back. It's the technology that gives me the ability to do this. And I'm very happy for it, let me tell you.
So how far outside the eye wall were you there at New Smyrna Beach?
Oh, excellent question. Let's just see if this will work. I took, obviously, a lot of screenshots. I would say that a couple of moments there, let's see, there we go. If this will pull up, and I can hold it up to the camera. All right, so let's see. I'll be able to see the little preview. So you know radar scope. There's the eye wall, and you might be able to see where my position was, the little blue dot. I'll zoom in on it. There's my position. Come on, do it for me.
So you were just scraping the eye wall, huh? So
the eye wall, like I was in the western eye wall by a mile or 2. There's no question about it. And the eye itself, the western edge of the clear eye, according to radar scope and that little distance calculator that they have, was less than 12 miles from my location. It was like, oh my goodness, it was so close. And boy, the energy that came out of that thing, and that's the west side of it. I cannot imagine in the deeper bands of convection in the northeast quadrant that we could see on radar what it must have been like there out over the open Atlantic, because the energy coming out of that western eye wall was some of the most impressive that I've seen, aside from Charlie and Katrina. Those certainly will be the 2 tops in my career so far, but this was up there probably in the top 3.
So this really was a bullet that was dodged by the Florida East Coast. I mean, it was still a severe hurricane, but it could have been way worse.
You guys remember the movie Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, where they're
One
driving?
of my favorites.
Yeah.
And the 2 semis come by and just miss them.
You're going the wrong way.
That's it. That's Florida. That's Florida. John Candy and Steve Martin in that little car. That's Florida. And the 2 Mack trucks that just nicked them would be Hurricane Matthew. That's how close it came. That's a classic scene. And the pleas from Dr. Knabb and Brian Norcross at the Weather Channel, and the different wording and some of the statements put out by Weather Service offices were very important, because this had the potential of being a catastrophic hurricane. We were worried a little bit on Friday that it could reach Category 5 intensity. There was enough dry air, I think, on that northwest side to degrade it enough. And just started messing with that circulation just enough that it was able to prevent that. And then, of course, it had that double eye wall. That was weird. And hopefully that helped as well. But boy, when you're that close to something potentially catastrophic hitting such a large area of coastline where a lot of people did not evacuate in the scheme of things, a lot of people did, but there were still enough people there. How do we know? We saw their video on social media of them going, oh my God, look at all this and look at all that. So that could have been really bad. And people need to appreciate that. As bad as it was, this is absolutely a case where it could have been much, much worse.
So let me throw this out to you guys. They pulled the Katrina statement out. They said that there's a chance that the place might be uninhabitable for weeks. Those horrific lines. And as it turns out, it wasn't that bad. Do you think it was a mistake to use the Katrina statement, or do you think it was a good call?
I think it was a good call, because if you blow it, people die. And in a situation like this, it was close enough that I think it was a good call. You have to do that. Err on the side of caution. This thing was a beast, and it was razor close, and you could just feel it down there. I'm telling you, because I was there. a little bit closer and a little bit different angle. And we're not talking about a vast difference. 50 miles. And we're talking a 10 miles difference and a little bit closer angle to the coast. And bam, it would have been terrible. Look at what happened up in St. Augustine on A1A and that region near Marineland and Jacksonville. It's that bad with a graze. Holy cow. You bring a Cat 4 in there with that kind of a wind and that expanding eye, it would have been absolutely what they said in those statements. And you just don't know, even 12 to 18 hours out, looking at the HRRRRRR model. I'm joking there, obviously, and other models. It's got to be tough. And maybe one day the science will be more exact.
So talk about the models for a second, because you obviously are watching those very carefully, Mark. Talk about their performance in the days leading up to the hurricane.
Wow, that's an interesting topic. The GFS, I believe, from what I saw, was the first to pick up on it consistently as a whole. It grabbed it, showing it in the 850 millibar level for quite a while. The European wasn't as good at the genesis of it, but in the end, who cares? That was, the impact of it's what everybody wants to know. And they both waffled back and forth. There was a time where it looked like it could come across eastern North Carolina with a direct hit. Overall, though, from what I have seen, a lot of information from Dr. Ryan Maui, that the European in the skill score would have won out. But we're not talking about a disastrous performance by the GFS like we saw last year with Joaquin, where the American-generated models were left into the United States, and the European and its ensembles, except for that one run, were constantly out to sea. These were both kind of back and forth, trying to deal with the complexities of the high-pressure offshore. And then Nicole. What do you do about that, right? And so overall, both models did well enough to know we were going to have a significant hurricane, but I guess in the end, it would be the Euro by a nose.
Okay, and so, of course, you're there, and you're watching what's going on. How did you feel the Hurricane Center did with their forecasts and warnings?
Excellent. Again, trying to deal with something that's moving through major population centers and getting closer to even larger ones. The Bahamas are populated enough. We're not talking about sparsely populated areas. You've got people down there on vacation, the residents, cruise ship, anybody, and trying to figure out which islands those are going to interact with. And that's after Haiti and the terrible consequences that we have seen and that were forecast for that area. Maybe it was going to happen in Jamaica and Southeast Cuba, all these different things they have to deal with. And then the threat to a tremendously densely populated area like Southeast Florida, and conveying the uncertainty. I guess it was last year that we started seeing these key messages. Whoever came up with that idea, I think, should get some kind of an award, even if they're just doing their job, because being able to boil it down to these key messages and conveying the uncertainty about slight deviations either way could result in X consequences. The public has to realize that this information can be extracted from these products and it's given to them on a silver platter if they'll just read it. And I know you guys in the media talk about it. I don't know how people don't hear it, because the Hurricane Center, I thought, with their forecasts, did extremely well. And Eric Blake posted a GIF animation showing that. And it's almost like it verified extremely well, even just a day after it happened for the most part. So I thought they did extremely well, especially with the messaging. I don't see how they could have done it any better with something that vicious, that close to the coastline where millions of people live.
Well, it's almost like an eyewall contraction, or replacement cycle with that key message. The advisories have become so long and so difficult to extract information from. You almost have to have a different way to get the information out. And that's really a good point, Mark. I was watching the hurricane very closely because we have two hotels in Jacksonville Beach. And so in that process, we were having to make go and no-go decisions on Thursday, and fortunately they were made for us, because, as we were making these decisions early on Thursday, literally the sheriff came and said, "You're not staying, and you're not leaving a maintenance man, and you're not leaving an engineer," even though we knew we were at the highest point in Duval County. They said, "You are not staying." And so, it made our decision for us, which was nice. But fortunately for us, we got back and everything was fine. But I watched a lot of CBS 43 in Jacksonville. One thing that really kind of concerned me is they showed that 10% surge exceedance chart over and over again until it almost became like, this is the gospel, this is what is going to happen. And it really isn't that. It's a worst case scenario. Unfortunately, they would occasionally throw that in there. So how do you feel that product performed, given this is probably the first time we've really had to use it?
The product performed well. The way that it was conveyed to people still needs a lot of modification because it's still new and it's hard for people to understand. We're shifting away from storm surge levels above certain mean low water, blah, 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 to above ground level. That's one of the key things that people need to understand, that these new surge values are above ground level, not above the high or low or mid tide, even though they mentioned that the surge is highly dependent on tide. It's very complex, and that is certainly what you're getting at there. And the right way to present the data to people so they understand is something we're going to have to figure out, probably collectively. And that's why these conferences next year are going to be so important, I believe, from the NWA to the National Tropical Weather Conference, the National Hurricane Conference, et cetera, that we learn from this and go forward to make it better. We've got a good start. We've got more technology than we know what to do with, but we've definitely got to wrangle it so that it's helpful and not adding more to the noise.
Well, I actually extracted that product in its KMZ format and looked at it, and it is amazing what is there, because they're basically all these different levels and these, percentage chances they're going to happen, which we all love percents on, in the weather world, but that's really incredibly valuable information when you're having to make a decision. What's my risk here and how much, risk averse am I? We use that product extensively. And when things begin to change Thursday morning, it was really critical to us as we were looking at that. So it was really quite crazy. I know James wants to really talk about social media. James,
I want to talk.
Why don't you lead off, James?
I want to talk about this guy. So did he go off his meds or what? So you got this guy on Fox News, and his quotes were just stunning. And I'm sure everybody listening to the show's heard this. And I was so busy, I didn't really get a chance to hear it. But he said on the air, this moves 20 miles to the west, and you and everyone you know are dead. All of you, because you can't survive it. And then he goes on to say, it's not possible unless you're very, very lucky. And then he says, and your kids will die too. What's the matter with this guy? And then he talks to a woman in Florida who didn't want to leave her home. And he said, I'll ask her why she's staying and if she expects us to cover her funeral. I mean, this is insane. And I've seen this guy do breaking news, and he seems to be pretty good at it. But he just went absolutely ballistic. And again, there's a lot of criticism of overhyping this, and wasn't that bad in Florida, and we all know that it could have been a lot worse. And I think that the Hurricane Center did an amazing job. I don't know if they should have pulled out the Katrina statement or not. I still debate that in my mind because that is so strongly worded. And it's almost to some degree like what Smith is saying here. But what's up with this guy? And were all the networks doing this? Was this example representative of what the television networks were doing?
Well, wasn't he the one, James, in Hurricane Katrina, who said that New Orleans had dodged a bullet early on that Monday morning about 10 o'clock? Maybe y'all can correct me if it wasn't Shepard, but maybe I don't know. But maybe this is an overcorrection to 11 years ago.
Somebody said it. I remember that.
But I know he was on the ground for an extended period after Katrina. He was in New Orleans and was doing a lot of the live coverage, and somebody speculated that that might have impacted him to the point where he's, I don't want to say overexcited, but where he pulled out the strongest possible language. I don't know.
But, and at some point, and apparently he's defiant. He's saying he said the right thing and he'll say it again. Nobody's going to listen to him. Again, he said, me and my kids are going to die if I live in Florida near the coast. And I didn't die. He lied. And they're not going to listen to him. And that's the problem, is this overhyped stuff, from people like this. And so, and we'll morph into the social media thing. So you got the Drudge guy who said, what did he say? He said the Weather Service is making this up.
Right. That's horrible.
What's the matter with this guy? I mean, what prompted him to say that? He says they're trying to promote global warming or whatever, and they're making this up, and it's not that bad, and it wasn't that bad in Haiti. And what's wrong with him? Is he off his meds?
He needs to come with me on the next big one, and he'll see. He'll see. You're staying with me, Matt Drudge, and you'll see. And then he'll feel it.
You go down in the eye wall, he'll be so puckered you couldn't drive a 10-penny nail up his backside with a sledgehammer. And he won't say that
could be
again.
a problem.
So you got this guy.
That's not
you
good.
know, the right wing guys, and I guess that's their thing, is that this is a scam, and you know, the hurricane's not that bad, they're making it up. And then the left wing guys come in here, even before this thing, is at the United States, and they say the only reason this is happening, it's man-made global warming, which is just as bad. They go the exact opposite way. Is there any voice of reason left in the world?
No.
In this politically charged environment, that this nation that's, you know, just bisected in this political divide? Just stay out of this. This is not politics, it's weather. These rubes come in here saying stuff that's outrageously wrong, and some of the stuff they're saying can be dangerous, like the Drudge thing, and all these right-wing guys that follow him, they're going to say, well, hey, there's nothing to it, I'm not going to do anything. Who knows how many people died in the United States? Do you wonder if any of those deaths were directly attributable to this guy? I don't know, but I'm just saying, come on now. And then on the left, the guys, if you say the only reason this is happening, or it's bad because it's, you know, man-made climate change, they're the ones that always say, well, we got to have peer review. We've got to have peer review. No comments unless it's a peer-reviewed paper.
Right.
Well, here's an idea. Write a paper and go let your peers review it, and then we'll talk about it. And you don't do it in the middle of a hurricane. It is like there's no voice of reason left in the world. It's very frustrating. It's just like, you have to be in the middle of social media to do an adequate job of providing information, but you're in the middle of, it's like it's a cesspool in there. So it's very frustrating. And I'm very apolitical. I don't care about this stuff. You know, like some people, it's their whole lives, but stay out of the weather. This is not politics. It's stinking weather. So Drudge on the right, and then Slade and Grist and all these far left-wing things are doing their thing. Just leave it. Just sit on it. Just stop it. Stop, or go into a padded cell.
I'm afraid we're going through an eye wall replacement in politics too, and I have no idea what the outcome is going to be.
No kidding.
But it really concerns me, and I think we're seeing that now with the crazy election. But you know, and I saw Cantori on television Sunday morning in North Carolina, and he says, you know, look, I-95 has been flooded 3 times in less than a year. And he kind of threw his hands up and he says, this is worse than it's ever been. There's some explanation. Mark, I'll risk the buzzer and I'll put you on the spot. Do you think this is really different, or is this 1954 and 55 all over again?
It's really different for people who are my age, and I'm almost 46, so I wasn't alive when the hurricanes of the 50s happened. So it seems different for people in this generation because we haven't seen it before like this. And we just don't know, I think, definitively. And if we say what we do know, I think we're kidding ourselves, and we're full of too much hubris, because the short time span of accurate, reliable weather data is just that. It's so short that unfortunately we need more time to try to figure it out. That's my opinion. And if it is absolutely man-made global warming that's causing all of this, which country is going to go first to revert back to 1850 to try to stop it? Are we going to do it? Are we going to raise our hands? I don't want to. So I say adapt and mitigate or perish, because if it is changing, you better adapt. I don't care who's causing it, because we're going to keep seeing problems like this. It is a mystery as to why it keeps happening. I mean, look, 1 year ago, we were talking about all the flooding and I-95 closed off because of the fire hose, whatever it was, as an offshoot of Joaquin. And that is very strange that 1 year later, we're talking about basically the same thing, except the hurricane came up here this time.
Well, our friend Sheldon Cusselson sent out something this afternoon saying, you know, this was literally the grand slam of moisture, you know, because you had the moisture directly from Matthew, you had some influence of Nicole, you had the big trough, and then one other thing, and you not only had the triple crown of moisture, but you had the grand slam of moisture. And it's
one thing very important to point out: the Western Atlantic, and this is absolutely indisputable. And I saw Michael Lowry tweeting this from the Weather Channel, that I I believe he was saying from 60 degrees west and or 80 degrees, somewhere in there, the Western Basin was the warmest at this time of year than it has ever been. And so we can look at those anomaly charts and, assuming that they're accurate, that's the caveat, and hopefully they are. I use the NOAA NESDIS anomaly chart, and you could just see it was completely full of this extra energy. Where did that energy come from? I don't see how global warming from us made the ocean warmer this year, but I don't understand because I'm not a global warming scientist. That's not my thing. So maybe I don't get it.
And here's the thing. Nobody on this. Look, nobody knows.
Right.
It's going to take months, if not years, of research
Agree.
to come back. You write a paper with a team of researchers that are climatologists. Go submit it for peer review. Get it published, and that's the way the process works, and that's the way it should work, and that's how. In a right way, people, so don't be reading blogs and tweets and all this. Well, so the same guys that say that come on blogs and tweets and say this, the only reason this happened is man-made climate change. Guys, listen to yourself. Everybody just stop. All this right-wing and left-wing lunacy is out of hand. And there's like no voice of reason. The only voice of reason left is Rick Smith, and he won't say anything.
And he's muted.
I like boneless. I like boneless wings the best, just for the record. I'll just put it out there.
So is Twitter useful at all in the situation when you're along the coast, Mark, and you got a hurricane bearing down on you? Is it overwhelming now, or is it too full of hype and hyperbole, or is it still useful?
I'm really glad you brought that up, and that was not a planted question, everybody. That's totally, that is a great
Mark and I
question.
spent an hour trying to hook Hangouts up. We sure didn't have time to even think about.
I believe that Twitter is extremely useful because of the fact that you can select who you want to listen to. And what Span is talking about, the voice of reason, to toot my own horn a little bit, I think I know quite a lot about how hurricanes impact society. So people who choose to follow me and other folks who are not going to just go off the deep end, you can, let me put it another way. You can choose not to follow those who are yelling through the bullhorn so loudly that it bursts your eardrums about stuff you don't understand or is scary, and just focus on the people who are going to make sense and be the voice of reason. And, we know who those people are, and there's more coming up every day. And that's how I think Twitter is extremely useful. And for the way I use it is to just convey what's happening. No reason to try to get the most dramatic, try to prove a point, try to be something that I'm not or that the hurricane's not. It's just, here's where I am, here's what's happening, and here it is. Take it or leave it. And it is what it is. And then people can make of that what they may. And so I think Twitter is extremely useful because you can filter exactly who the different players are that you're going to listen to. And then that can be helpful if people know how to do that.
Here's one of the problems, I think, with Twitter. I think we forget that there's a relatively small percentage of the population that uses Twitter. For a lot of us,
we think everybody's on it, right?
Right. In the weather business, it's just like that becomes part of your life. I mean, Twitter has grown into me here. I mean, it's just part of me.
Agreed.
But a large percentage of those people that we serve don't even have a Twitter account. They don't even know what it means or how to use it. So, and I agree with Mark. It's very effective if you know how to use it for getting information, for gathering information, for assimilating information, but just a small percentage of the population is using it. So, and where's the large percentage? They're on Facebook, which is a disaster because, you post something on Facebook, and if you're lucky, you get 1 or 2% of those that follow you get a notification that you're live or you're doing this update, or they might get it late, or they might get it 3 months late. And it's almost impossible to use that in a real-time fashion. So it's a problem, Mark. And, in goodness, the Twitter thing can be so overwhelming, and people are just bombarding you with questions, and it's like you got this 800-pound gorilla on your back, and we're honored that they came to us to ask us questions, and they're trying to engage, and we come back and respond. But I wonder sometime if we're wasting our time with a fragment of the population, a small segment, where we ought to be focusing on a way to reach a larger percentage. I know that the Facebook Live stuff, Mark, is unbelievable. When I open up one of those live streams, goodness, before you know it, you'll have 100,000 people watching. Do you use in any of your in all your video streaming? Explain that one more time so I can understand it, because this helps me, because again, we're all trying to feel our way in the dark here. And this was the first hurricane in the social media era, really, the big one.
Well, I appreciate that. So let me, as quickly as I can, go back to 2005. That's the first time we started streaming live. We were using Windows Media Encoder, a laptop, a digitizer, and it was very cumbersome, but it worked. Katrina was the first nearly wall-to-wall, from driveway to driveway coverage that I did, and it was a very small stream at a very low bit rate, but it actually worked. Ever since then, more people have gotten into it, et cetera, especially the tornado chasers, and it has grown. In 2007, Ustream came on, and by 2009, I had joined that and started using Ustream, which was a Flash-based system, and that eventually grew into HTML5, et cetera. So by 2010 or so, 2011, we were moving away from Windows-based streaming, using much more Flash-based with Ustream. And then by 2014, did away with the laptop and the whole process of having to encode video from a computer to more of a web cam-based application, a Wi-Fi camera, and a mobile hotspot. So it became extremely simple. It's on or it's off, period. Then we started putting those cameras into boxes, like I talked about earlier, this size box right here, that we could not only stream live from the vehicle, but place these cameras out. Then, in the last couple of years, Facebook Live, Periscope, Meerkat, whatever happened to that. And yet,
they pulled Meerkat 2 days ago. It's gone.
Oh, YouTube still doesn't have a way to stream through their app for everybody. And that's where I think it could be very helpful. But I'm getting off the subject a little bit. But basically, what I have seen is there are now so many different ways to stream that it is difficult. I have stuck with Ustream and tried to grow an audience there through Twitter and my Facebook interactions. But this time, to answer directly to what you asked me, during Matthew, I did the Facebook Live thing. And it was interesting. I didn't have 100,000 people because I had not done it before. But the people that joined in, it was very much like Periscope, where I could see them interacting and asking questions. But boy, that's distracting. You want to answer them, and then all of a sudden it's like a big wow, wind comes through, and it's like, what was that? And you're not paying attention to your world around you, and something bad could happen. And you cannot be distracted when you're dealing with the western eye wall of a bad hurricane. And so what do you do? But to boil it down, I would love it if everything I did, to be honest with you, would go through YouTube Live, because then I could consolidate that into one spot where billions of people could access it. That's just me personally. And YouTube's been around for so long, I think it could handle it. We'll have to see how Facebook evolves, but there are so many choices now. How do you choose the right one to reach the most people to have the most impact? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't either. I think YouTube and Facebook Live are the big ones. And Twitter's Periscope is fine. It's great. But again, it reaches a much smaller number of people. We play with it every night back here during our late news, doing a little thing called Song of the Night. And there's a reason for that. So I can learn these platforms to see how they work, their strengths and their weaknesses. But there's no doubt, I think YouTube and Facebook, if you could somehow, do them both, then there's great power there, because that would reach a whole lot of people. But you're right. It is a jigsaw puzzle.
YouTube, please make your app stream live. I can't believe that it's not available yet. There are third-party apps that'll try, but I've tried them and I can't get it to work consistently. But I'm really looking forward to when YouTube has an update to their app so that everybody can go live on YouTube. Maybe there's a reason why they're holding off. I don't know. But when that day comes, that'll change once again the dynamic of how I can reach people, because of how fast I think a broadcast could grow, either in the before part where I'm trying to inform people as to what could happen, the during part which speaks for itself, and the aftermath part to help share information about what people need to do to make sure they're safe in the aftermath.
Yep, I agree. Again, we got to figure it out, but you just got to keep on keeping on. And sometimes you got to do multiple platforms, and goodness, it's just overwhelming sometimes. And that's even from some clown like me that's far, far away. You get all these questions and all these reports, and goodness, I could not imagine being in the middle of it where you were down there, having to respond while you're fighting the Western eye wall and trying to answer people's questions. I couldn't. My head would explode.
But it's like you said, I feel like it's a privilege that I have earned, and I'm honored that people are asking me questions. And so I have this sort of strange, compelling urge to answer them, because I'm there, they're not, and I know what I'm doing, and I know how to answer the questions for the most part. And so there's that sense of responsibility, but knowing when to put it away and to focus on what's in front. But a lot of the technology has helped me do that, to be quite honest with you, because the stuff that I set up ahead of time. It's working 90% of the time. The gremlins are going to show up once in a while and screw something up. But for the most part, everything I set out works, and I don't have to worry about that part anymore. And I can focus a little bit at a time between bands or whatever. Hey, let me look at my notifications on Twitter and see what people are asking, and I can respond real quick. It's funny, a lot of what I do, I'll just simply use the Siri and the voice to speech to text part, and it learns, and it's getting better, and that's how I handle a lot of it. I feel like I'm talking to somebody. I can literally go back and go, yes, Bob, the Western eye wall did wobble a little bit left. Keep an eye on it. Thanks for asking. Boom, it's done. That kind of a so you don't have to sit there and go, that would kill me if I had to type everything. And so people listening to my stream hear me talking to all these various people. That's what that is. I'm not usually typing with my fat thumbs. I'm talking with my fat face.
So I ask all the nosy questions here, Mark. So what's your motivation for going down there? Is it monetary, financial gain? Is it building a business? Is it what? Why do you go down there?
It's not for the financial gain, because that disappeared a long time ago. There was a time when being in the hurricane business independently like me was literally a living. But now it's much more a love of labor and the science. I've always been a weather geek. I grew up in Eastern North Carolina, and the hurricane history here always compelled me. And it always drove me crazy to see people standing on the beach telling me how windy it was, and they're wearing a hat like I am now. It's not windy in my office here, you get the idea. Well, you're lying to me when you tell me that it's 70 miles an hour and you're wearing a baseball hat, okay? And I thought, I'm going to go out there one day, and I mean, honestly, I thought, I want to be a blend of Jim Cantori, and then you remember in the old days, Dennis Smith and Jill Brown and some of the greats, and also be a teacher and put the science into it too. And that's what drives me, is to be able to go out. We know Josh Morgerman shoots hurricanes and typhoons probably better than anybody in the world. He's got other people that do the same thing. James Reynolds over there in the Western Pacific. They have a very specific job. I want to add to that the data and a different perspective to show surge and the other impacts. And the technology really lets me reach my fullest potential to show people what happens in a hurricane using technology to keep me safe. I'm never going to be completely safe, obviously. Something little could happen, get bit by a snake, have a wreck, who knows what, right? But at least the technology allows me to spread out, be in more places at once, to show people that impact, and then you can get their attention to teach them something and maybe motivate them to learn, because that old expression, the more you know, knowing is half the battle.
So James, I'll ask you, we're always watching the national media in these things. Were there any serious gaffes that you spotted?
I was so busy. I just, the one thing I saw, everybody kept sharing that Shepard Smith thing where he said, you're going to die and your kids are going to die. And lady, you're going to die. We're going to cover your funeral. And I want to cover your funeral. I got to go to a wedding or something. I mean, I got that clip. I did not have time to watch anything else. But what I've said in the past, it's interesting, every time there's a flood or a fire or whatever. They call it a monster storm with 80 million in the path, and it's unprecedented, and it's struck. This is the same thing. And what I always say, what happens when we really do have a monster storm?
Absolutely.
Is anybody going to listen to these guys? And that's the big question. I don't know. I'm sure this was a monster storm with 70 trillion in the path and everything else, but I don't know. And it would be interesting to me. I would love to go back and find out where people were getting their information that live in those hurricane warning zones in places like Daytona Beach and Jacksonville and Savannah and Charleston. I would love to know their prime sources. Where does television rank? Is it still number one? Is social media eclipse that? And if you use social media, what accounts do you follow? Do you watch cable television? Do you watch the Weather Channel or Weather Nation? I would love to know that. And I think it would probably shock some of the people with the answer. And I'm sure that there were some national folks that did a great job. And I'm sure, and here's another thing that really, just chasing a rabbit. So, I was tired, and we don't sleep. I'm not as tired as Mark. I mean, Mark probably hadn't slept in 2 weeks here, but so Ginger Z, she pulled one of my tricks. She happened to retweet or kind of throw out there a choice, critical piece of social media traffic from some just idiot. And that really ate me up because she went down there. And Mark, you don't understand how hard it is. And I don't do these anymore. I enjoyed them a long time ago, and there were very few people down there, and we were down there really telling stories about the people that are on the coast. I just don't like the environment now, so I don't do it anymore, but I used to. Let me tell you what, it is brutal. It takes a toll on your body. You were exhausted. You were wet. It feels like you're wet for the next 3 months. It feels like somebody could go whitewater rafting in your armpits for 2 months after these things. And so she was in that phase where she was so exhausted, and then some jabroni said it was apparently he's one of these drudge follower guys, because he said, you're scamming us, and it's applied, and the media's, claiming all this stuff, and it's not happening. That really ticked me off. The trolls started coming out. You think you might get a break from these guys, but leave her alone. If you want to pick on somebody, you come pick on me. And that just really teed me off. And I would show some of that exchange, but it's the profanity this guy's using is so vulgar. I'm not going to do that because we have young people that watch his show. But goodness gracious, Mark, what's wrong with people? I mean,
I know.
And then the question is, have you had any trolls come on and come after you?
Well, I don't probably have nearly as many followers as Ginger Z. Okay, but it's interesting that I only had a very limited amount of that, just a couple of people at all. I mean, and so that's different. And again, she's a bigger celebrity than here. I'm a celebrity. You know what I'm saying?
Ginger Z is kind of a big deal.
Yeah. That's right. So, yeah. But I have enough people that follow and they're watching live, et cetera, that I didn't have very much at all. And in fact, that was kind of surprising. So I thought, I wonder why that is. And now I'm going to probably invite it upon myself. But, there are some angry
they'll be on you like
people.
Flies on poop after this show.
Yeah, really. But you know what? In the old days, I used to get emails from people. And so they could, do it that way. And they would say some terrible things that, they even went so far as to say that Home Depot and Lowe's were in it with the National Hurricane Center to drum this stuff up, and that I must be profiting deeply from it when Lowe's was our sponsor. I'm like, right, exactly. Lowe's and Max Mayfield at the time, they're all controlling the weather. It's amazing. Who knew that North Wilkesboro was actually the center of where HARP is? It's not in Alaska. You want to be sarcastic like that, but you can't. So I learned now. I use basically my one political comment. You remember when Governor Haley, I think, said something to Donald Trump when he was attacking her or something. Nikki Haley just said, "Bless your heart." And I just like to use that. When somebody says something ridiculous, you just, something easy like "you're probably right" or "bless your heart," and you just let it go. I mean, honest to goodness, you got to just let it go. I don't care what they say. You let it go. But I didn't see much of it And I feel bad. And I'm going to tell you what, Span is exactly right. I'm going to just say this. When people say, I see them in the parking lots of the gas station or anywhere I'm on the way to something, and even in the off season, oh man, you've got my dream job. I would love to do what you do. You guys hiring? I mean, that's awesome. I mean, I think that's neat, of course, but it's like they have no idea, do they, James Spann, and the rest of you that have been out there in these things, they have no idea, do they?
No. And they all want to make they think you can get a camera, go make a pile of money, and you're going to be rich and famous. And I tell them, guys, you're going to be miserable for about 2 months after this thing, just trying to dry out. You're going to lose hundreds and hundreds of dollars on bandwidth and gasoline and everything else. And if it's not what you think it is. It is a very, very harsh environment. I mean, it's brutal, but
that's why he sends me.
Exactly. I'm looking down here. Who's expendable on this
there
staff?
you go. Expendable.
Me and Brian. Yeah.
And I'll tell you another reason I'm cranky. We got to pause for a second for these recorded segments. But so I've been posting some sunset pictures. I do this every day. So I don't know why it is, but some nights the chemtrail loons come out. I mean, I've banned probably 25 people while we're talking off my Facebook page, saying that it's geoengineering. You idiot! Can't you see what the government's doing? They're poisoning your minds. And they call them chemtrail action team members. That they have an action team. And at this television media are all just posting sunset pictures with cirrus clouds. Oh man, it is just brutal. So.
I saw you on top of that sundog tonight. That probably is.
The chemtrail guys just bring it on, man. But we got to stop now. And again, we got Brian Peters with a WeatherBrains 101 rant, and Tony Rice, our astronomy correspondent, has lost his voice. So you'll hear a different voice on that segment, and we will come back with the weather roundup. We've got the email inbox, we got picks of the week, and much more as WeatherBrains rolls along.
WeatherBrains 101 with Professor Peters.
There appears to be some murky water left behind by the recent Hurricane Matthew. And I'm not referring to the record flooding which Matthew produced. No, I'm talking about the word landfall or land falling. During the coverage of Matthew, I heard this term used a number of times, some of them totally incorrect. So I'm here to set the record straight. This usually entails a quick consultation with Merriam-Webster. In so doing, you will find that landfall has 3 definitions. 1, a sighting of land after a voyage or flight. 2, a reaching of land as by a traveler, craft, or storm. And 3, the land first sighted on a voyage or flight. Now, number 2 is the one which describes the use of the term landfall in meteorology, but with some strings attached. But I really like the definition of landfall found on the National Hurricane Center's website. It is the intersection of the surface center of a tropical cyclone with a coastline. As meteorologists, we need to know when something starts and when it ends, so we can do things like determine when on average certain things start or how long on average they last. So there has to be an agreed upon point in time when a hurricane starts to exist, as in when the wind reaches a certain strength and the cyclone storm reaches a certain degree of organization. There is also an agreed upon point at which the hurricane hits land, also known as landfall. Since the eye is the heart of the storm around which nearly all other measurements are referenced, landfall is when the eye of the hurricane or the tropical cyclone, that surface center, usually visible on satellite views, on radar, as well as on the ground, crosses the shoreline. That is an arbitrarily decided on moment which scientists say the hurricane is at a certain point in its life cycle. Landfall does not, repeat, does not mean that a hurricane hits land or arrives or becomes a problem or starts to do damage upon landfall. For many, many years, hurricane forecasters have tried to underscore the importance of the fact that a hurricane is not a point. The impact of a hurricane begins hours before landfall. Those outer bands that brought the beginnings of flooding rain come way before. The occasional tornado spun off by a hurricane may have already done in a neighborhood hours before landfall. The highly damaging wind begins long before landfall. The storm surge may have even started to chew up the coast before the eye wall crosses the shoreline. It is actually possible for a hurricane to totally mess up a coastal region, as Matthew did to Florida, without the eye ever crossing the coastline. No landfall, but big problems. Landfall is not the arrival of the tremendous impacts associated with a hurricane. The hurricane is a BGT. That's a big, giant thing. Matthew will probably go down in the record books as one of the most damaging hurricanes on record. And for Florida, it all occurred without Matthew ever making landfall in that state. If you have a weather question, email your question to question@weatherbrains.com.
Looking beyond the atmosphere, here's Tony Rice with your astronomy outlook.
This is Matt Rice. My dad lost his voice thanks to a cold, so I'll be filling in for him tonight. To be fair, I probably gave him the cold. The Kennedy Space Center weathered sustained 90-mile-per-hour winds gusting up to 105 miles per hour as Hurricane Matthew passed Cape Canaveral. According to NASA officials, quote, the center received some isolated roof damage, damaged support buildings, a few down power lines, and limited water intrusion, end quote. One historical item appears to have suffered some damage, however. The orbiter access arm used by astronauts to board the shuttle was blown over. The GOES-R spacecraft weathered the storm, including a switchover to generator power when the Astrotech facility lost power. A United Launch Alliance spokesperson warned on Sunday that launch may be delayed a few days from the planned launch of November 4th, adding, a comprehensive assessment of the manifest will be completed when normal operations resume. Elsewhere in the sky, the launch of the orbital ATK Antares rocket on a cargo resupply mission to the International Space Station has been rescheduled for Friday, October 14th. Liftoff is planned for 8:51 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. This is still a night launch and should be visible up and down the East Coast, weather permitting, of course.
When the weather ball is red, warmer weather is ahead. When the weather ball is white, colder weather is in sight. When the weather ball is green, no change in the weather is foreseen. When colors blink, night or day, precipitation's on the way.
This is October 10th, the weather roundup. Matthew is off the board. Nicole is on the board. Should become a hurricane, be pretty close to Bermuda Thursday, but no direct impact on the United States. So, Mark, before you go, I know you got to go, is after Nicole, can you stick a fork in the hurricane season? Is it done?
No, sir.
No,
for sure.
No.
But, you know, we have plenty of warm water, very high ocean heat content in the Western Caribbean, and a semi-favorable MJO pulse coming. Looks like we're going to get this sort of Central American gyre setting up down there with the, you know, which could or could not spawn something. So I'd say there's a decent chance that we still have one more development in the Western Caribbean, which fits climatology this time of year, and it certainly fits in with the pattern, especially with that very, very warm water. And we're not in an El Nino. Odds favor one more development at least.
You heard it on this show first. So where's landfall going to be? Galveston?
No, I would have to say no, not this time of year.
Who invited
Not
you?
impossible. But no.
Hey, Kevin, what does he know?
I know, really.
So that's the tropics. Down here in the deep south, we have not had rain for 7 years. We might get some in November. December is our fall severe weather season here, so we typically get a lot of rain. So we can see that coming here in 3 weeks or so. But I'm afraid our fall colors are going to be brown where we are down here in the deep south. Kevin, what's happening in Wichita Falls?
Our fall colors are always brown. That's all we get. So we're looking forward to that. It's been pretty wet. We've had 2 rain events that totaled 10 inches between the 2 of them in some spots.
Braggart.
Yeah, we got, it was quite, well, we had that big one. I was away. We had a big stripe of 5 inches about 3 weeks ago. And then last week, it was quite a difference between my house, which is only 4, 5, 6 miles from Shepherd Air Force Base, which is the main reporting site. They only got 1.4 3 something, and we did 4.43 at my house. So yeah, it was quite a range around the area, but good soaking. And anything here for the lakes, our lakes are all well above, they're in between 95 and 100% after a 5-year drought. So that's pretty good.
Wow. So Rick, you had some severe weather a few days ago, didn't you?
Yeah, we had a little bit. Well, actually, there was 2 days last week, I think, where we had severe weather, and kind of October. It's not that unheard of to have severe thunderstorms. Luckily, it wasn't anything too bad, but we're kind of in that change of seasons time of year where we're getting a lot of variability. We're people have their heat on in the morning, and then air conditioners pumping away in the afternoon. We're going to be up close to 90 by the weekend over places and parts of the area. And it's just kind of, you don't know what to wear this time of year. That's the complaint I hear so much. Have to wear a big sweatshirt in the morning, and then I need flip-flops and shorts in the afternoon, but that's what you get.
I feel like I'm seeing a particular type of Facebook post more frequently during severe storms from Rick. Do you want to tell everybody what that is, Rick?
I can't remember.
It's just a short comment about your particular feelings about thunderstorms in your market at a particular time.
Oh, yes. I just for the record, I hate not just severe thunderstorms. I hate thunderstorms within a 50-mile radius of Oklahoma City.
Wow.
Severe thunderstorms especially, and that's all I have to say about that.
I want to go down a rat hole here, but we got to do Aubrey's email. So Aubrey, you got any email for us? All right, so let's. I want to go down a rat hole about the National Weather Service in Wichita, Twitter, and the private sector. But first off, let's see if we can dig up any good old email to read.
Letters. We get letters. We get stacks and stacks of letters.
Oh, yes, we do have a couple of letters. Thank you for sending those in. So first one, speaking of snow. Oh, we weren't talking about snow? Okay. Well,
I wonder if there's any snow around.
I tweeted out a picture in the Glacier National Park. There was some snow. Their webcams.
Yeah, I was trying to get you started there.
Yeah. Speaking of that, so this email came in from Devin Greeny, Memphis Greeny. So I guess he's from Memphis. If you can't trust EmpireNews.net for your forecast, who can you trust?
Oh yeah, that's your number one source for weather right there.
Yep, it's always going to be an above average, record-breaking snowmageddon winter. So get ready to hear more of that, because it is going to be a record-breaking snowmageddon winter. We all know.
So how does this thing? So that thing was first posted at least 2 years ago. Every year it comes back. It is just like a bad cockroach.
It's like someone says, "I want to get 500 million clicks today. I'll post this."
I'm going to share that map from EmpireNews.net. I'll get them.
Yes,
and it was such a bad-looking one too.
It's I don't know. To me, it should be obvious it's fake, but I digress. So then we had another guest suggestion from Rob. Rob sent us in a couple of suggestions or some emails from time to time. So thank you. I would like to suggest Dr. Tamitha Skov at Tamitha Skov on Twitter to talk about new space weather satellites. She's a contributor on Ham Nation on the TWIT network and is about as knowledgeable as it gets on space weather. So of course, I'm sure Tony Rice would love to have some more space weather chats, so we appreciate that. And I believe that is actually all I have this week. So if you have an email or a guest suggestion or a topic from the show that you would like us to discuss, just send it to email@weatherbrains.com. You can follow us on the Twitter and the Facebook, even though our live tweeter is not on tonight.
All right, so help me out now. So we had our guest from the Turnpike. What was that? Was that last week or week before last? I lose track of time here.
That was 2 weeks ago, I think.
Before.
And they use private sector warnings, tornado warnings from AccuWeather, and they put them on their road signs. And so apparently we had a little kerfuffle after our guest left the show here. Who wants to explain? Kevin has taken a picture of us. What are you doing?
No, I'm typing and I've got responding to a text. Don't watch the video. I've told you that 1,000 times.
Okay.
He's taking a selfie.
Yeah. Hey. So who's going to tell this story now? Rick didn't want to get in trouble here. But
you tell it. It'll get you more wound up.
Well, you guys are right there. You're where it's at. I'm from a distance. I just see bits and pieces of this. But apparently,
see, your mistake. See, it's Wichita. I'm in Wichita Falls, not Wichita.
Oh, okay. So apparently, AccuWeather issued a tornado warning, and the Weather Service in Wichita did not. Is that the way this whole thing started?
Yeah,
that's how it started.
Okay, so Brian,
I'm just like you. I'm getting bits and pieces. I was trying to catch up on what they did because when they were on our show 2 weeks ago, they said they were going to continue to issue tornado warnings with a specific source of the tornado warning. That was the last I heard, and now it seems that it's happened again, and they've changed their policy once again, according to what I've seen.
And apparently, the warning didn't verify. Rick, correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, this was up in the Topeka metro area, I think, which got into a little bit more populated area, and an emergency manager who was a little bit more perturbed about it. He was very vocal about it, and then I guess they had a meeting or something. The Shawnee County, or I'm probably getting some of the facts wrong here, but the emergency manager from up in the Topeka metro area had a meeting with Kansas Turnpike Authority. And then I think the KTA came out and said that they're no longer going to continue to put the warnings on their road signs, but they're not going to tweet them or post them on Facebook or whatever they've been doing anymore. And then I don't know what happened in between then when that tweet came out last week. I don't have any knowledge of that. I just saw the tweet and went, oh no.
I'm trying to find it here so I can, but somebody who look, everybody here has probably sent out a tweet that you shouldn't send out. I will raise my hand. I am guilty, and somebody working just got a little flustered, and they got into a little what's the right word, Kevin? A fight. With Mike Smith of AccuWeather.
Oh, yeah. We're onto him then.
Yes.
Yeah. I don't. There was something. There's a Facebook group that kind of deals with the human interaction warning system that I'm part of, and Nate talks about it a lot. And there are some very good and smart people in there. We had mentioned a couple weeks ago, there was a tweet out from someone named Dakota Smith that was a screenshot of an argument going on between Mike Smith and somebody. And he, once again, was kind of dumping all over the Weather Service. And I got in there and made a comment. And he came back on my comment. And my decision on him, based on what he said, was that he just has a few problems, and I think they're personally based, and I think that they're probably fairly deeply rooted in his psyche, and I don't think that we're going to change them. The only way that this would really become that something would change on this behavior by him and AccuWeather is if some lawmakers got involved. Which I don't think is probably going to happen because the rest of us don't have time to do that. Part of the AccuWeather management leadership and history is to do the type of influence that they do on the government to keep the Weather Service down where they are and keep them from competing. And we kind of established that on Mike's visit some time ago when we talked about apps and so on and so forth. But the way Mike behaves in public, which is kind of strange to me. I don't really pay close attention to him, but Nate speaks fairly highly of him. He says he's a smart guy and he knows what he's talking about and he's a nice guy, but he gets into this zone where he's just unbelievably boorish and rude and not deserving of any attention, in my opinion, but he gets it. And so I just don't know that we can change his behavior. I think it's fairly unfortunate, but like I said, I think it's fairly deep rooted. I think he has some issues with regard to his own personal self-esteem that probably we can't do anything about. That's not a direction that we needed to go on this, and I don't think you were wanting to go in that direction, James. But with regard to him, I just don't think there's anything we can do. With regard to the problem that you're talking about, is independent organizations or any organization issuing tornado warnings is probably something that should be addressed. And it came up years and years ago. I don't know, you remember this deal that Dan got into up in Huntsville, Dan Satterfield? My understanding was he was kind of issuing warnings many, many years ago, and it went up to the vice president's office, Al Gore's office. Do you remember any of that, James?
Yes. Dan was at the CBS channel in Huntsville, Alabama, and he started to issue his own warnings.
Yeah.
And there was a big ruckus. And I think Dan, and we ought to get Dan on the show sometime. That'd be the first time the three of us have been together since 1993, But I think there was some pressure on Dan to stop it.
Yeah.
And he just stopped it. And I do think it went up to some pretty high levels within NOAA. And now every Tom, Dick, and Harry is issuing their own tornado warning.
Right.
It's just like everybody's doing it.
The confusion factor just continues to grow, and that's why I say I don't think any good is going to come from this unless somebody in the government gets involved. And even then, I don't know what we can do with people posting things on Facebook and whatnot. But AccuWeather, what's the name of that group, Brian? That most of their management people, that's some sort of lobbying.
Yeah, it's got a very highfalutin
commercial weather services.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah,
it seems like some group that is basically there to try and leverage some sort of power with the government and give them information that says what we're doing is right and what everybody else is doing is bad. And like I said, none of us have the time nor the energy nor the resources to mount a full-time challenge like that. But that's one of the things that AccuWeather does.
Well, and I have to admit, I like what the Kansas Turnpike Authority is doing. They're going to put the AccuWeather warnings on their signs, but they're not going to put them on their social media.
Why is that better?
Well, yeah. What's to me, it's worse putting it up on the signs. That's
because just think of how many people it's getting to. It's only getting to the drivers that are in the vicinity of the event.
But if it's bogus or causing confusion, why can't some be coordination?
It's still, yes, I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just saying I certainly don't. They say they have 12,000 Twitter followers or Facebook followers. They have 12,000 followers. Putting it on a sign or two is one thing. Getting it out to 12,000 people certainly adds to the confusion even more.
I was kind of confused when they were here too, because they kept saying, well, half of our users or whatever are just passing through. And I thought,
I don't think
when I take a road trip, I don't go and oh, let me see. I need to check on the Twitter account for, North Carolina, because I was driving through there a couple of weeks ago. I guess somebody is, but I didn't quite understand that.
I don't either.
Well, again, we got to go because I'm the lead on the newscast because of wildfires.
Go on your rant. We derailed you.
Well, look, here's and you saw the tweet. I don't want to put it up again. I mean, if you're watching this, you saw it. The Weather Service in Wichita got very frustrated and said something about the AccuWeather guy, and they deleted it, and hopefully they've kissed and made up. But I just think that as a weather enterprise, we are tearing apart at the seams.
Yes.
United we stand, divided we fall. And we are divided. In many markets, TV stations are doing their own warnings. You got the private sector doing their own warnings. And it is this overload of conflicting information, and everybody's starting to brag, well, we get it right, and they don't, and it's just, they won't go in the same room, they won't communicate with each other, and we are going down a really bad path, and somebody's got to get in there and stop it. I don't know if it's the political environment in this country that's got everybody wanting to fight. I feel like I'm living in a pro wrestling match right now in the weather enterprise and in the United States in general. And when I was a little kid, the way it works with pro wrestling, they have these, paid TV ads, which are wrestling matches, but they get everybody all whipped into a frenzy because the bad guys came in with folding chairs and were hitting people and throwing salt in their eyes. And if you come down to the auditorium Monday night, you'll see the revenge. And everybody comes down to the auditorium, and it's like we're in this pro wrestling thing where everybody wants to fight. We got issues to work through, but listen, we don't have to fight. We are sensible, intelligent people, and we can work through these and come up with a consistent, clear, unified message and voice. And I don't think it's that hard. It's like first grade, we can do this, but I got to go. So let's do picks.
Okay.
I mean, if you Brian, can you finish this out?
I got to go too. I got a show too.
Okay. To say we've all got newscasts. That's the problem. We're down to TV people.
You want to give your pick, James, before you run off?
Yeah. My pick, it's a story in the New York Times about the humanitarian crisis in Haiti. And, the death toll is over 1,000, and it's just a mess. And please don't inject politics into this. It's like you even talk about the need for humanitarian help in Haiti, and then they start talking about the Clinton Foundation and this. And guys, just stop it. This is not politics. There's some real issues down here. And again, I think the New York Times, which they can do very well, told a good story about what's going on down there. They've got reporters on the ground, photographers, and you can actually get a pretty good sense of how bad it is in some parts of Haiti. So that's my pick of the week. So Brian, the floor belongs to you, sir.
All right, Kevin, you're up next because you've got to go too.
Okay, thank you. Mine is not weather related, only in that we use this thing for weather information, as we've discussed for years and years, but it's a book that's been out for quite some time now. But it's by a guy, former New York Times reporter named Nick Bilton, and the name of the book is Hatching Twitter. And it is about the founding and the first several years of Twitter, and it's a fascinating read.
Looks interesting.
It's really good.
All right, Aubrey, you're probably up next because you're going to have to go too.
Yes.
Like the dress, by the way. Like the dress.
Thank you. Appreciate it. By the way, you only look like you're about 38.
Oh, thank you.
Just to let you know.
You're definitely will be in my will.
Mine is an article with some pictures of some of the lightning sprites from Matthew when it was still in its early days as a hurricane in the Southern Caribbean.
Those are fascinating. I looked at your article. Those are fascinating pictures.
So cool. Yes. And I think it just kind of shows maybe a foretelling of the power of the storm. I don't know.
Yeah. James mentioned that people say Matthew was a made up storm. It's like, I can't believe that people would even think that.
Because we're all in on it. They got every single one of of us all in on it. And that's exactly
I get a big check from the conspiracy folks. Yes. Okay. Yeah. Rick Smith, how about your pick?
Well, this was a cool show tonight about Matthew. I think we've probably, if we really wanted to do 2 or 3 more, we could. One of the issues that's come up with this storm and with previous storms is how are we defining things? Brian, I love the rant about landfall. I hate that term.
Thank you.
This is not a dot. This is not a black line on a map. This is a huge thing, and we got to figure out a better way to communicate that. And my pick of the week is a Mashable article by Andrew Friedman that talks about rating hurricanes, because we had the problem again with Matthew. Well, it was a 4. Now it's only a 1. It's only a 1. And
only a 1.
People want to put a number and a label on everything. What do we do? I mean, there's got to be a better way to do this. So I think we're going to be hearing a lot of discussion about that as we go forward.
I think you're absolutely right, Rick. Just to interject real quick, is that all of my friends in Florida that I talk to, because that's where the majority of them are on the coast, is where's it going to make landfall and what category is it?
Yeah.
I mean, that's all I heard. Oh, it's a cat 2. I can say for a cat 2. Oh, it's a low end cat 3. That's all I heard. And it's like you have a friend who's a meteorologist who is warning you, and they won't even take that warning. Out of all of my friends that I know on the Florida coast, one actually evacuated, and he was in Port St. Lucie.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that was all. That was all I could do.
Well, I want you all to know that the rant from WeatherBrains 101 came about because I took the initiative between the 5 and 6 o'clock news on Thursday of last week. I was filling in for James, and I took the initiative to address our newsroom to tell them that I had already heard the use of the term landfall in other newscasts, not ours, fortunately, and I wanted to make sure they all understood it, and that's where the incentive came up for the WeatherBrains 101. So
Yep, good stuff. I think that's another example of a confusing technical term that meteorologists. Well, it is landfall. It's when whatever. We're confusing people, and we wonder why people don't respond to messaging and respond to watches and warnings. That's one of the reasons, I think, is there. Well, it's not going to make landfall here, so why should I care about it?
Yeah. Right. Bingo. Yeah. And also, Rick, adding to that is the Hurricane Center's classification of Matthew as a post-tropical storm. It's like, oh my God, they're doing Sandy all over again. It's still the same daggum storm, just because a few meteorological parameters change.
We've got to quit talking to ourselves. We've got to quit talking like meteorologists. It's never going to get any better if we keep talking to ourselves.
Right. And I agree with James wholeheartedly that we're slowly but surely tearing the meteorological profession just out of its whatever it's in. I don't know. We're very divisive right now. So anyway, my pick has almost nothing to do with weather, but it does have to do with Matthew. And I don't know if you guys saw this. I happened to run across this article on CNN about the Florida bald eagle that was stuck in a car grill, the front, the grill, the front of the car. And it came about right at the end of Matthew as the conditions were improving in Jacksonville. I don't know the circumstances of how the eagle got in there, but I have learned that they had to cut the grill to get the eagle out. But there's a very happy ending because the eagle was allowed to go free back out into the wild, and he was basically not seriously hurt, apparently, in his collision with the car and getting stuck in the grill. So, and they named him. Can anybody guess?
Tell us, Brian.
The name you just won't guess in a million years. They named the eagle Matthew.
Yay! That was an amazing picture.
Yes. I would have.
Some guy driving down the road in the opposite direction looks at this guy's car and said,
"Yes,
wait a second, there's an eagle hanging out of your grill." Turns around and flags that guy down, and then they got the bird out. Amazing.
Yes. Yeah. I still would like to know more about how in the devil. The only thing I can figure is perhaps the eagle was on the ground somehow or other. Or swooping down, I don't know. Managed to get caught. But I was so glad to hear that the eagle was basically allowed to go free almost immediately without any serious injuries. So that was very good.
Yeah, that was nice.
Well, as you all can tell, and Bill Murray has one too. It's Kevin gave him a free pick. It's the Boston Globe. Kevin does this a lot, and I actually check there pretty frequently. It's called The Big Picture from the Boston Globe, and it's a tremendous amount of pictures related to Matthew. Before it struck Florida, before the effects of Matthew affected any of Florida, but it's got some pictures from that area as well. So that's Bill's pick. As you can tell, I am not James Spann. I have entirely too much hair for that. But we certainly appreciate everybody for being on. I told Mark before he left that I thanked him for being on via the chat. And we certainly appreciate him stepping in since we had a dropout at the last minute. So that was really interesting. And I agree with all of the panelists tonight. We could probably do 4 or 5 shows on Matthew alone. But we will do this one at least. In the meantime, remember, we usually record WeatherBrains on Monday evening around 8:30 Central Time, 9:30 Eastern Time. And so we invite you to come in and live.bigbrainsmedia.com. You can watch the show live if you want to later on YouTube. Again, I'm not James Spann, but we certainly appreciate you all staying with us this evening. I hope that you have a great week ahead, and Godspeed.
Well, it's all over. I always miss the end part. Thank you guys for watching. Very interesting. Thanks to Mark for coming on the show, talking about his experience with Matthew. For those of you watching live, we'll do Song of the Night over on Periscope here in a few minutes. If you want to join us over there, just follow me on Twitter, Span. And we will see you guys next Monday night. Thank you all for watching. Have a great weekend. God bless. Bye.